Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Fox News has chosen the top 10 Republican candidates to participate Thursday in the first debate of the 2016 presidential election. The candidates include frontrunner Donald Trump, Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Ben Carson, Mike Huckabee, Chris Christie, and John Kasich, who eked out a spot as the 10th highest polling candidate. The remaining 7 Republican candidates will participate in a forum earlier in the afternoon are Carly Fiorina, Rick Perry, Bobby Jindal, Lindsey Graham, Rick Santorum, George Pataki, and Jim Gilmore. Fox News said it calculated its top 10 list by averaging 5 national polls, a process which came under fire from polling agencies earlier this week. The Marist Institute for Public Opinion temporarily suspended its polling, saying Fox's debate criteria ignores the margin of error. Another top pollster, Monmouth University, said based on current polling, there's no good rationale for arbitrarily selecting a top 10. In more news from the campaign trail, Republican candidate Jeb Bush has sparked outrage with a statement that women's health care is overfunded. Bush made the comments when responding to an interviewer's question about the Planned Parenthood sting videos, which are edited to appear to suggest the organization sells fetal tissue, an allegation Planned Parenthood vehemently denies.
Shouldn't we make that an issue and say not one more red cent to Planned Parenthood?
We should, and the next president should defund Planned Parenthood. I have the benefit of having been governor, and we did defund Planned Parenthood when I was governor. We tried to create a culture of life across the board. The argument against this is, well, women's health issues are going to be, you're attacking, it's a war on women, and you're attacking women's health issues. You could take dollar for dollar, although I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues.
Jeb Bush later partially walked back the statement, saying he was not speaking about community health centers, but only about Planned Parenthood's, quote, hard-to-fathom $500 million in federal funding. He had a Twitter war with Hillary Clinton, who was questioning his saying he did not support women's health care in America. The Washington Post is reporting the FBI has opened a preliminary probe into the security of the private email setup Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton used while she served as Secretary of State. The probe is looking into whether any classified material that may have moved through the private server was handled improperly. The FBI inquiry was confirmed by Clinton's lawyer, who said they're cooperating with the probe. This comes 10 days after the New York Times incorrectly reported that 2 inspectors general had asked the Justice Department to open a formal investigation into the private email account, a story that the Times later retracted. In news from Ohio, the mother of Sandra Blands has filed a lawsuit over the death of her daughter, who was found dead in a Waller County, Texas jail cell last month. Blands was arrested July 10th by Texas State Trooper Brian Encinia, who alleged that Blands failed to signal a lane change. Dash cam video of her arrest shows Encinia forcibly remove Blands from her car, threatening to light her up with a taser. She can later be heard accusing police of slamming her head to the ground. Authorities have said Blands committed suicide in jail, a claim her family has disputed. The wrongful death suit filed Tuesday argues Encinia used an inappropriate level of force during the arrest and that Blands should not have been arrested in the first place. The suit also contends Blands was placed in a cell containing a large garbage bags and exposed beams even after she told authorities she'd attempted suicide in the past. The suit names State Trooper Encinia, 2 Waller County jail guards, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and Waller County. Meanwhile, in news from North Carolina, the trial has begun for a white police officer who fatally shot an unarmed African-American man who was seeking help after a car crash in 2013. Randall Carrick, a white police officer, is facing charges of voluntary manslaughter for allegedly shooting 24-year-old Jonathan Ferrell. According to prosecutors, Ferrell had sought help from a nearby homeowner after a car crash, but the woman had believed she was being robbed and called the police. When the officers arrived, one pointed the laser of his taser at Ferrell's chest. Ferrell fled in fear and attempted to hide between the 2 police cars. This brought Ferrell close to Carrick, who then opened fire, striking Ferrell 12 times. If convicted, Carroll could face up to 11 years in prison. In news on Puerto Rico, the White House has said it's not considering a bailout for the U.S. territory, which did not make a $58 million debt payment Monday. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said that Puerto Rico needs to, quote, restructure its liabilities, but that a bailout is off the table.
We believe Puerto Rico needs an orderly process to restructure its unsustainable liabilities. But as I've said before, the administration does not envision a bailout for Puerto Rico, but where available federal assistance can be leveraged to assist the leaders of Puerto Rico in meeting some of their financial obligations, we stand ready to help.
This comes as the New York Times is reporting Puerto Rico has also temporarily stopped its monthly payments to a fund that's used to pay back investors who hold general obligation bonds. Puerto Rico has a $370 million payment to this fund due January 1st. A bill before Congress would allow Puerto Rico to declare a limited bankruptcy, a move currently permitted only for cities and municipalities inside U.S. states. We'll have more on Puerto Rico after headlines. In science news, a new report shows significantly more methane gas could be leaking into the atmosphere than previously thought. The study found a device used to measure methane escaping from natural gas facilities is consistently underreporting the emissions as a result of a technical glitch. Methane's a greenhouse gas that fuels climate change. The study's findings could mean natural gas fracking, which emits methane, is more detrimental to the climate than previously thought, and that climate change could be happening at an even faster rate than current estimates. In news from Afghanistan, the United Nations is reporting civilian casualties are at, quote, record high levels. The UN says nearly 1,600 civilians have died since January, the highest number of any similar time period since 2009. The majority of the deaths are reportedly from Taliban forces. However, the report notes a 60% increase in deaths caused by U.S.-backed government forces. Danielle Bell, the director of the United Nations Human Rights Unit in Afghanistan, spoke earlier today.
The vast majority, or 90% of all civilian casualties, resulted from ground engagements, improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, complex and suicide attacks, and targeted killings. This destruction and damage to Afghan lives must be met by a new commitment by all parties to the conflict to protect civilians from harm.
In news from Mexico, authorities have released footage of 3 suspects leaving the apartment of photographer Ruben Espinosa, who was murdered alongside human rights activist Nadia Vera and 3 other women in the capital city on Friday. According to human rights advocates, Espinosa's death signals a new level of violence against journalists in Mexico, who had previously considered Mexico City a safe zone. Mexico City Attorney General Rodolfo Rios said the office is pursuing an investigation. The office has come under fire this week for appearing to focus on robbery as a potential motive of the killings, despite the fact that Ruben Espinosa had been repeatedly threatened for his reporting in the southern state of Veracruz. To see our full coverage of Ruben Espinosa's murder, go to democracynow.org. Israel's arrested and jailed a Jewish settler for 6 months without charges or trial, marking likely the first time the controversial policy of administrative detention has been used against an Israeli citizen. The detention comes as Israel attempts to crack down on Jewish extremism following a firebombing of a Palestinian home in the West Bank last week, which killed an 18-month-old baby. The government has expanded the use of detention without trial to include Israeli citizens. It also said authorities can use harsh interrogation methods against jailed Jewish extremists. Both policies were previously only applied to Palestinians. Meanwhile, authorities have also arrested Meir Ettinger, the grandson of Meir Kahane, for his, quote, involvement and activities in extremist Jewish organizations. Meir Kahane is considered the father of right-wing Jewish extremism. He founded Israel's anti-Arab Kach political party, which called for the forced removal of all Palestinians. In more news from the region, a Palestinian soccer team in the West Bank will face off against its rival team in Gaza for the first time in 15 years. Israel approved the travel plans for West Bank team after Palestine threatened to call for Israel's suspension from FIFA over the government's attempts to restrict soccer players and coaches' movement in and out of Palestinian territories. Islam al-Batran from the West Bank team, Al-Ahli, spoke about his excitement over the visit.
I cannot describe this feeling. This is a historic visit. This is the first time that we visit Gaza, and we are surprised how much the Gazans are amazing people. We also thank the people of Gaza for the hosting and the audience of the Shajaya Club for their festive welcoming, and the journalists and everybody. It is a truly amazing thing.
And 2 undocumented immigrants have been appointed to serve as commissioners in the Southern California city of Huntington Park. It's reportedly the first time undocumented commissioners have been appointed in the state. Huntington Park Mayor Katrina Macias lauded the appointment, saying, quote, "They have every right to be at that table because they're part of our community." And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
Juan.